That's fine. Good afternoon. I always have to check to see where I am in the middle of the day. Am I in the morning or in the afternoon? I'm a bit lost for time. The Hockey World Cup is on, and so I've just watched England thrash Wales, which, if you're Welsh, I'm sorry. I think England literally just did thrash Wales, and so I'm a bit lost on where we are on the time of the day, and I should be working, but
here we are.
I'd like to have some rests, aren't we? I mean, ultimately, it is August, and everybody else have some teachers are off completely. But yeah, look, we'll give people a moment to join in about kind of 20 seconds. We'll get started. But really excited to have you here, Gilly. How are you?
Yeah, good. Really excited. Looking forward to having a conversation and chatting through some of these things.
Yeah, obviously we've been talking a little while, right? So I'm excited just to get people to hear your brain and to hear some of the cool stuff that you do and have been doing, because I think it's fascinating. And I think there's so many lessons we can learn from the world of work, from the work you do in regards to performance and how people show up. So yeah, really excited for this.
Yeah, and I think performance is performance, isn't it? It doesn't matter what domain you're performing in, you're still performing. So I was at a wedding recently and having a conversation with a dancer around performance, and it's the same. It's putting yourself to that level, some level of scrutiny, judgment, just whether you're doing it on a football pitch, a hockey pitch, a dance studio, a boardroom. Doesn't, the consequences of your performance might be different, but the actual performance is performance, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because when we talk about this, this is quite a nice way to start, to be fair. But when we talk about the difference between, let's put dance into that kind of sport performance, you see it as a game or a match or a performance. If we think about dance, I don't know if they would call it anything else but performance. Whereas work, we don't have a performance. Our performance is you go to work for the 8 hours a day, and maybe you have moments where pressure's higher, maybe in a boardroom meeting or a presentation or wherever it might be, or having a comfortable conversation. But you're performing for 8 hours in comparison to sport, where you perform in specific things, situations. And so the way we prepare and focus on that is going to be really different, right?
Yeah, and I think you can talk about it in terms of, like, if you were going into a business meeting or you were selling or pitching, you can argue that is maybe a similar lens of performance that we would typically talk about in sport, because you're going in with a goal to win, whatever that winning or that outcome of success looks like, isn't it? But yeah, completely right. You're going, a surgeon who is performing a surgery is a 12-hour performance, really, at the end of the day, as with all of the pressures and the skills and the techniques and the dealing with yourself that must be life or limb, really, isn't it? Like, compared to sport, that's another different angle that we can think about performance.
Yeah. And when I think about using the surgeon, but when they're not working and not in surgery, there's probably a bunch of things that they have to do well. It might not be a performance, but you have to do that thing well to get to that place, the admin, making sure everything's correct, all of those things, being able to focus. I think it's all part of that performance.
Absolutely.
Nice way to start, but we've skipped a big bit for me. And the big bit for me is people knowing who you are, right? I know you as Gilly, but that's the shortened version. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell me who you are, what you do, and look at the journey as well, right? Because you're in a great place now, but I know there's been a journey to get here. So
absolutely. Yeah. So my name's Gilly. I am a sport and exercise psychologist. I've been working in mainly team sports for the kind of last 10 years or so of kind of elite sport. Currently working in a Category 1 football academy as the head of psychology within the academy, which is really cool. So supporting athletes, players, footballers, parents, coaches to perform, really, to excel in football. Been working in football for kind of 6 years or so, and previous to that worked in a professional rugby club, mainly with the women's section of the club. Again, just trying to help the players to reach that potential and to perform to the level that they can. I like to think of myself as a failed athlete in every sport I ever tried. Always got to a certain level and then didn't have that edge or that talent or whatever to go on to the real top end. But I have played with people who were far more talented than I was, who would struggle under pressure, whereas I quite enjoyed the pressure. And that's where my interest in sports psychology and performance psychology in a broader sense really came from. So kind of seeing that firsthand and almost being quite lucky that I knew that's what I wanted to do from kind of 15, 16, and was able to make that happen. And yeah, it's a long journey to get yourself qualified and get yourself up and running and working. And my dad always used to say to me, "Oh, you should have gone and been a GP. Like, it's taken you that long." But yeah, it's 10 years down the line, here we are. And yeah, really cool job. I love it. I wouldn't want to do anything else, to be honest. So yeah, really excited to talk about it.
I really love, like, the failed sportsman hits me so hard. I'm also this. I feel you. But mine was down to not realizing the amount of work. When I look back and go, I just expected me to be good enough, and just well, actually, I needed to train your 5-6 days a week. You needed to get up. The Kobe Bryant mentality. Yeah. I just didn't have. I enjoyed life too much, or didn't realize that's what I needed to do. 10 years in industry, a bit more time, kind of educating yourself to get to that point, right? What's the biggest lessons you've taken from those 10 years when it comes to the world of sports performance? Do you want to share?
Yeah, I think for me, how I try and work and how I try and I guess operate is that actually you're talking to people. You're just talking to people that are really, really talented in their field. And it took me a while to, I guess, get into that mentality of actually, at the end of the day, people are humans and we have the same, fears and goals and wants and needs and all of those kind of things that we just express differently. So I think once you can tap into that idea of actually you're just working with a person that's just exceptionally talented at their thing, it makes, I think, or I believe, my job easier, because I'm just trying to get that part of the that section of their personality or of them as a person out of them. I think the relationships and the communication is massive. I kind of went into my first role thinking, I've got this massive textbook of all these things that I've learned from university, and this is what I'm going to do. And actually, that's so irrelevant if you can't build that relationship with the person that you're working with. So I remember working in when I was working at the rugby club, and I was working with somebody who'd been to the World Cup and was an unbelievably experienced rugby player, and came to me and wanted to have a conversation. And my first thought was, I'm just going to do some imagery because this is what I've learned. And it was almost like it took a while to actually click and realize that that's great in its own way, but actually sometimes people just want to be heard and they just want to have a conversation, and that relationship and that conversation is paramount to be able to work with anyone, help anyone. That's what we do as people, isn't it? We want connection and communication, and how we get that is through those relationships. So I think they're the two that I've probably kind of held on to the most, is the idea that we are humans and people, and we exist, and we want and we love and we hate, and we have all those emotions that can be quite scary sometimes, but also we need to build those relationships to allow people to feel comfortable and able to express those thoughts and those needs that they've got.
Yeah, because it's so interesting, isn't it? And I think I probably do this a lot as well, is that we put these sports people on pedestals and we go, wow, these are great human beings, they must have everything fixed. But they are, as you said, still human beings, and are still fallible, and still have real human being problems, which they actually have probably less skills to train that, understand that, maybe an assumption, but they've been so focused on the sport and being good at the sport that some of the other bits are just being done around them, and maybe some other skills haven't been learnt as much. or the expectations are there sometimes. And so when these failures happen outside of the sport, they don't know how to cope, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time as well, especially in team sports, is your failure might be attributed to someone else. So if I've played really well, but my goalkeeper's had a rubbish game and let in 2 goals and we lose 2-0, I can almost go, oh, that wasn't because of me. So you almost haven't learned to fail as an individual because you've been exposed to it as a team. And then quite often your first failure might be being released from a club, which at 16, 18, 14, 20, whenever that happens, because it happens in the majority of people's journeys at some point in their career. That's almost the first failure because you've been the best at your school or you've been the best at your club, and then you've been the best in your area and the best in your county. And it's true for most sports, isn't it? You move through kind of rank by rank until you get to your level. And I think when you're in a professional environment like we're in, that you've almost often been the kind of best one that's got through. And even if you've maybe been released from a club as a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, you'll get picked up quite quickly. So it's almost that key, or that failure, that big first failure happens maybe a little bit later in life than maybe you or I would have experienced kind of being teenagers. Or, I think I probably learnt my, being an adult when I was at university and having to live by myself for the first time and having to call my mum because I didn't know how to cook something, or still having to call my dad when my car breaks or whatever. But those kind of things, isn't it? It's like we're doing it in a more common way of expressing failure, as opposed to kind of doing it when your career is really on the line.
Yeah, and I guess at that age especially, and even like when you get to 21s and even at the pro level, it's been the ultimate sole focus for so many of these players, right, or these people, to be the greatest or to reach a certain level. And so when that failure happens or a setback happens, you must being able to manage it must be really difficult as well.
I think
how does that affect their performance, do you think?
I think there are definitely certain times of the season or certain times of the year where the pressure is ramped up. So if they know there's a decision time coming, or if they know it's a decision year coming, or that kind of thing, I think that can really heighten the pressure on some of the players. And I think a lot of that is down to support networks, support systems, and also their own awareness of maybe their fragility or the vulnerability a little bit of football, elite football. But I think you can also see that there's pressure in games. So if you've got a cup game, for example, there may be more pressure attached to that game than a league game. So it's not. We try and expose them to pressure in a kind of safe environment, so that actually we can help them to fail almost. So exposing them to different types of fixtures, or different, playing out of position, or fatigue, or playing European teams, or teams that they're kind of older age groups and maybe physically more developed, that kind of thing. So trying to expose them in that safe way of letting them understand and feel those uncomfortable feelings that we sometimes attribute to failure. But yeah, I think it is that there are those moments throughout the season where I guess everyone is more heightened in terms of that piece around the pressure of trying to be a professional footballer.
Yeah, what I'm hearing here is like I'm always trying to think of like the lessons we can take and cross across to the corporate world, right? This concept of in high pressure moments, one of the things that could help you is the more you come out of your comfort zone and try to experience failure because of the comfort zone challenge, you might be able to manage that pressure better when those pressure environments come. Yeah,
I think exposing yourself to that, exposing yourself to experiences outside of your comfort zone do help you to develop that resilience and develop those coping strategies, and also understand yourself better. Because like we know, there are some athletes in all sports, and I'm sure in the business world as well, who are unbelievable in those pressure moments, but if you ask them to perform where there's no pressure, or that they're not bothered, or it doesn't matter as much to them, they won't be able to get to that same level. That kind of Americanism of like clutch performance is actually a thing. So being able to really dial up to that next level when it really counts. And I'm sure there are people that work in, sales teams, or, sit on boards and in that kind of corporate space that know that when they have to perform, they will, because they've experienced it throughout maybe when they were younger, or in a more junior role than they currently sit in. So I think, it's that being able to expose yourself in a way that it's okay to not succeed, rather than necessarily saying you failed, I think is the other important distinction around the language that we're using.
Yeah. And the language, the self-language as well. I can see that probably where you come in quite a lot, right? Is be able to have those conversations to create that awareness.
Yeah, and I think even the identity piece. So there's a quite a big distinction between saying I am a footballer versus I play football, which is quite a small kind of, when you say it or you write it down, it's quite a small distinction. But actually putting all your identity on being a footballer, or being a hockey player, or being a cricketer, or being a doctor, whatever it might be, you're kind of attributing yourself to that. Whereas if you say, I play football, or I play hockey, or I play the guitar, or I like to read or draw, or whatever, it's giving you more of that kind of, I guess, holistic attributes to your personality, or your identity, which it sounds really easy for me to sit here and say it, and I know that is not the case, but it is that idea of actually, can you take that, kind of separate those different parts, and allow yourself to be who you are as a human, as well as you wouldn't necessarily go into a room and introduce yourself in the first time as, hi, I'm a sales professional, or I'm I work in, you'd say I work in, maybe I wouldn't necessarily introduce myself in a room full of people I've never met as a psychologist, unless I was in a work capacity. So I think it's that other level of just being able to be who you are, and have those other experiences and those other life kind of attributes that make you that rounded person.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to, I can see that being really difficult for football players. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's the hard thing, isn't it? So I think that's where a lot of the work comes in through younger ages. So still being able to be a child and experience and express and learn and try different things. I mean, we've all probably seen the research about actually, like, early specialism now is kind of discouraged, whereas previously it would have been encouraged. So, actually go and learn to swim, go and play tennis, go and play paddle, go and play golf, go and do other things that you're interested in. If you've got the opportunity to go on holiday, like, go and experience a different culture. So a lot of that's kind of the work where my team come in to work with those younger age groups and those younger players around, and the parents as well, to also help with that identity piece of, you're good at football, it's great. When you're here, you can be a footballer, but actually outside of that, you are John, age 10, likes Pokemon. It's that other element as well.
Yeah. And I remember having my other sports psych friend on here talking about identity and the importance of knowing self, and not just putting all your value into the one thing. Because I think since then kind of spoke about kind of identity is like not just having all of those things in one basket, right? Just having you in one basket. If you can split those over, when the one thing falls, like not all your eggs are going to break, right?
Yeah.
If you put all your eggs into that one basket, if I am a football player rather than I play football, your resilience and your ability to bounce back is always going to be way better, right?
Yeah, and I think it can be a really protective factor for players that have got released, and to kind of help them with some of the potential mental health and well-being challenges or experiences that they may have, is almost having those other parts to you. So yeah, you play football, but also you're a brother, or you're a son, or an uncle or a father, or down the line, whatever that may be, as well as you like watching Marvel films and like you play chess, whatever those other aspects may be.
As they get older, I'm trying to think about kind of transferable skills across. And I think just the identity piece in general is a really transferable bit, but like the support, I think you said, right, working with the young academy players, you can encourage that. But I think as they get older, they get a bit more into that. I'm a football player. How do you break that? And I'm trying from a transferable piece. How do we then maybe what methods, what models are there which would help?
Yeah, I think how I try and operate is off what we would refer to as a humanistic philosophy, which kind of encompasses three key things. So what's your motivation? You're unique as an individual, and that you've got free will. And if you can understand what you're motivated by, how that journey has led you to where you are, and then the free will to choose and to understand the consequences and the I guess risk and reward and all of those kind of things, then actually you can be in quite a nice place to if you want to lean into the lifestyle of the kind of typical social media footballer that we would think about, then you can do that if you're aware of it. But I think there's that other element where if actually what's your journey taking you to get there, or what's the unique moments of your journey, that can again be that kind of protective factor around that, and understand that my free will is, if I want to do X, Y, and Z and go to Ibiza, for example, then you can do that. You understand the consequences. The other thing that is really important is around their education. So really pushing a lot of players now doing degrees, getting their A levels, getting their BTECs, that kind of rounded education piece is really important, because if they don't make it as a footballer, hopefully they've been exposed to different elements that they might be interested in. And actually it's about how can we help them have a career in the game, whether that is as a professional, as a coach, as a physio, as a psych, as a S&C coach, media, doing like TV reporting, whatever that looks like. It's actually what else is that interest in football, which they love, that we can actually go, okay, great, you love it, but can we explore it from maybe an angle that we haven't thought about before? So there's a big, much wider piece than just the work that's going on in the psychology department to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I love that. I want us to move into kind of high stress moments, right? One of the things I think stands out is that sport has these high pressure, high stress moments. There are really good people at managing that, and there are some bad examples. How do you help your players? What skills what kind of awareness and tools do you help them manage those?
Yeah, I really like there's a quote, I can't remember who it's from, you'll have to forgive me, from a tennis player saying that regardless whether you're playing at Wimbledon or you're playing at the park down the road or you're playing on your local court, you're still playing with 2 rackets, a ball and a net. The constraint and the constructs of the sport do not change. There may be slightly different rule changes if you're playing at different levels of competition, but the actual structure of the sport does not change. Whether you're playing Sunday League with your mates or you're playing in the Premiership, there's no, the game isn't different. So a lot of it is coming back to that like learn innate skill that you have from when you were younger that you develop through. It might be using tools like a reset. So if you've missed a penalty, or you've missed a shot, or you've conceded a goal, or you've missed a pass, or whatever situation the game is going on, it's having a really simple reset technique that you can do, which could be something as simple as, okay, missed my pass, take a minute, deep breath, pull my socks up, and then have some sort of positive affirmation that's going to allow me to move on to my next action. So it might be, I know I can do it, get back into position. And that kind of 3-step, 4-step process can be really, really powerful, because it's something physical. So it's a distraction. it's a mental part of it in terms of the affirmation, and then it's a behavioral part in terms of what's my next action. And quite often you will see footballers, rugby players, athletes taking a minute to kind of untie or retie their shoelaces, or if you watch tennis, it's the towel over the face. Those kind of things can act as a kind of natural reset cue, which is a really simple but really effective way of kind of parking the mistake or parking the error and going, what's next? So it's always that can we move forward? How do I move forward? That's a really nice one that you can that kind of anyone can practice as well, because it doesn't require any equipment or any kind of real like deep level of training on it. Almost, you can go and do it now if you wanted to. That's a really key one. Self-talk can be quite impactful as well around what we're saying to ourselves. So the language of kind of the what ifs, or what if that happens, or what if I fail, what if I miss, what if I don't do that, can stop people from even trying. So that self-talk piece around the kind of I can do it rather than I will do it as well is a good one that we like to try and use. So a couple of different ways in there. Like I'm a big fan on goal setting or like habits. I think being able to habit stack is a really good skill. If you're looking at your preparation, so tying that into some routines can really help you to kind of mitigate that pressure that you might be feeling, or help deal with those high pressure moments in the game or in your day-to-day life.
And that one's really interesting, because I think goal setting is really important, but I've never thought about it as managing like a higher pressure situation. Have you got an example? And obviously details we can't go into, but have you got an example where you can share that I think you've done with somebody, and this is
process? I guess the easiest one to look at is maybe a little bit more of a closed skill. So a penalty, for example. So if you're taking a penalty, the kind of strictness of the routine is what makes you succeed under pressure with that penalty. So actually breaking it down into the kind of key different stages. So it might be initially I am kind of, taking 4 steps back. That becomes my kind of routine. Sorry, my lights have gone off. Give me 2 seconds. We're good. So yes, that idea of I'm taking a penalty, I put the ball down, what do I do next? Do I take a deep breath? Great. Do I take 4 steps back? Great. Do I focus on the spot that I'm going to kick the ball? Do I focus on the spot on the ball? Do I look at the goalkeeper? Like, what's the kind of thing that works for me? There's loads of really, really good research on penalties if people are interested and want to read more about it, especially after the World Cup. But something like that can be a really nice way of building a routine into actually probably one of the most high pressure moments in sport that we feel, and almost embedding that under pressure. So it's easy to practice it when you're not tired and it doesn't matter. So how do we do it now when you're tired? So if we can increase that fatigue, we can kind of mimic some of that pressure physiologically more, psychometrically that we're going to feel. So being able to go, oh, actually, my heart is beating right now. I am feeling a bit sweaty. Maybe I'm feeling a bit shaky because I've just exerted myself physically. Okay, place the ball, deep breaths, step back, picked my spot, which I already have done, and then kind of deep breath, strike the ball. That kind of thing is probably quite an applied way of looking at it.
Yeah, do you know what? My brain's going into a weird little story, I guess. Tangent, but like when I think about the penalty, it's very similar to in the corporate world a presentation, right? And I think a lot of that, having those procedures, I think is going to be really important, and they're super transferable. But when I think about the kind of feedback I get, it's the confidence, it's the self-talk, it's the everybody staring at me, wherever it might be, and my brain went into kind of how do the concept of how do you put yourself in situations, because when you practice you don't have the pressure in practice. So how do you create that mix of, or how do you feel that get that feeling? And in my head went, and then this is something you've done, but the concept of the comfort zone, I can really resonate with now. Like, okay, well, actually, do you chuck these guys into karaoke? Because that's a different pressure. People staring at them, doing something which is uncomfortable, just to manage that pressure, or to get that feeling of nerves and to feel that more.
Yeah, even something like asking them to present on some footage of the game that they've played. Something like that is a really small, on the surface task, but actually speaking in front of 30 people on something where, again, there's potential for judgment, there's potential for disagreement, there's potential for the unknown of the questioning that might come from it. Those three things can all create that pressure. It's probably something that they don't get exposed to that often because they're not doing it as a job. And so that can be a way of again, putting them in that. I've not taken a group to a karaoke bar before, but I think that could be quite a fun way to do it.
Everybody has to sing. Adele.
Previous roles I've been in, we've used dance. So the losing team of the competition, or the forfeit, is they have to do a dance in front of everyone. So that can ramp up a little bit of that pressure as well. I know people that have done it in ways where they have the kind of forfeit goes onto your kind of best friend in the group.
Okay, yeah.
So the pressure of me succeeding isn't actually because of me, it's because of my best friend who's going to have to do a consequence of my actions, which is another completely different way of looking at it. So yeah, pressure training it's a kind of golden question in psychology, isn't it? We're always trying to replicate, and we've done it I remember in COVID, one of the things that we were trying to focus on is actually what do we do when the crowd noise comes back? Because you've played with silence and you can hear everything, not just the person standing 10 meters away from me. I can hear the whole pitch. And actually playing music over a tannoy just to get them remembering what it's like to be with multiple different stimulus going on is a form of pressure training. Even again, we're coming at it from a different angle to try and replicate and prepare for that kind of situation where when the pressure is on.
Because I remember it's obvious, right? The game's played in the head, right? Everything you do is played in here before it's played out on the grass or in the next action, right? I know we've got kind of 7 minutes. I know you've got a busy day ahead. I want to leave with this kind of question. You've had a chance in 10 years to work with some very good athletes, probably ones which are fantastic physically, and you've got some which are fantastic mentally. I want to look at the mental side of this, right? What stands out? When you see these guys, what is like the 1-2 characteristics, maybe 3 characteristics, you go, yeah, that's why they were so good. And is it like that stands out for you?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you can think about different players. So you can think about somebody that socially you would think is like a real leader, and you can see them and think, I can see why they're going to be successful because they've got that charisma and that communication skills. And then you've got other players who are much more individually, but so self-assured individually that it's like water off a duck's back for them. So I think that idea of knowing yourself and being true to yourself, going back to the identity that we spoke about at the start, but knowing that actually I am that person that's wants to be that massive extrovert and is life and soul of the party and is bouncing off the walls and chatting to everyone, and that's me authentically, versus the person who is typically we would maybe describe them as more of an introvert or keeps himself to himself and doesn't really get involved too much with the banter and the teamness, but actually knows that when it matters on a pitch, they are going to be true to themselves and perform in the way that they would like to. I think that's a good indicator. I think there is something about confidence that a player is confident in their decision making, even if it's maybe not the best decision of the time, but being able to execute that decision with full confidence. I think we see it in cricket probably quite a lot in terms of players selecting different shots and executing it with 100% confidence rather than that hesitancy or getting a nick and getting caught out, or golf, not executing that shot with 100% confidence and topping it, or hooking it or whatever, or hitting the tree around the corner if I'm playing. But that's that kind of level, isn't it, of that, just that confidence in your own decision making of this is what I've selected based on the stimulus, my experience, my skill set, and I'm going to commit to that with 100% like confidence. You've also then got all the other stuff around discipline versus motivation versus the kind of desire and drive to be successful. But I think that's a whole nother conversation that we probably don't have time for right now, that we could definitely talk about another time.
Yeah, I think even with confidence is probably a very similar thing, because I see confidence is such a broad term in self, in skills, in belief, wealth, worth. Probably the confidence in the action you take and the decision you make is what I'm hearing there.
Yeah, and just that full-hearted, like, committing to that action. So that unwavering, I know that's what I'm going to do in that situation, and I will execute it, even if it may be 1% better decision over there. I'm going to make this one the best decision for me in this moment. I think is really, really positive.
I love that. There's a few really great lessons here, but it's interesting, isn't it? Whenever I speak to psychologists, it keeps coming back to identity. Having that strong understanding of who you are, values, and then a couple of processes around managing pressure. I think you get those two things correct, and how you do that, putting yourself, maybe a third, then putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, that comfort zone space will help you perform in most situations. Yeah,
and then I think the next level on that is the reflection and the debrief from that. So put yourself in the uncomfortable position, or put yourself in the higher level than you used to, but then actually reflect on it and debrief it and think, how did that feel? What did I do well? What do I still feel uncomfortable about? Because that next level of that is going to just increase your self-awareness, which hopefully will increase that confidence, because you know what to expect and to expose yourself to it. And it's, even if it's something as 3 things that went well, that can be enough of a reflection. But thinking about the positives as well as the negatives, because humans in general lean towards the negatives a little bit more. So I think that takes that onto that next level of debrief and reflection and action plan, and then go again.
Yeah, we don't do that very often. I know in sport, you guys have a very good feedback process or debrief process to the sport. But how often do we do that to uncomfortable situations, to where our emotions and pressures happened? I know when you feel that, right? But how often do you sit down and ask it? I can imagine you probably force it quite a bit with some people, because you recognize and you watch. But in day to day, I don't think we do it enough at all.
Yeah, as an individual, taking away my job hat from it, it's really hard to do, because you're almost putting yourself back into that uncomfortable situation that you were in 2 days ago. And then it's almost, do you let the emotion take over, or do you let the rationality take over? And that's the balance of, this is what I was feeling, but why was I feeling it? Rather than just, I hated that, I felt really upset, I never want to see that person again, or whatever it might be, rather than actually, I felt like that because I was underprepared, or maybe I was over-prepared, or the alignment wasn't there, and that kind of stuff. So I think that's we don't teach self-awareness, do we? If I was ever in charge of an education system, I would make self-awareness a lesson, because I think it's such an important tool that we assume people learn as they grow older, but actually I don't think we do naturally very well
at all. It's one of the things I see a lot in my space, right? The awareness and the reflection isn't there. Gilly, thank you ever so much. Follow Gilly, sorry, I always call you Gilly. Gilly, thank you ever so much. I know you've got to run. But I presume if people are watching this and listening to this, they can follow you live. So I follow you on LinkedIn to see your journey under Gillian Thomas. We'll get it right at some point. You'd be surprised we've been friends for a little while now. But it's been a pleasure to have you on here, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been really great to chat. See you later.
See you later, everybody. Goodbye. See you next week when the next one's on.
Perfect.
So yeah, Gilly, stay where you are quickly.